Welcome back to the Play by Play podcast. This is episode number 67, where today we'll be going through one of my favorite things to do, especially as of recently with NFL offseason officially kicking off with free agency. And that is going ahead and doing another mock draft. But this time, doing a mock draft post NFL free agency with pretty much all of the big moves being set, with all of these teams slowly beginning to reconstruct their teams. We will see what direction that has pulled these teams in when it pertains to their draft identity. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below, and share with your friends. And if you haven't already, come on, man, what are you doing? Go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All those ads are going to be down below, and you already know where it's at. There will be a bar popping up right here. So go ahead and follow those if you want to see my latest reactions to breaking news within the NFL and the NBA. And without further ado, guys, the commentary of the post-free agency NFL mock draft starts right now. Let's get it. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and hop into it, because NFL free agency was exciting. It was very exciting. I'm really sorry to you guys that I did not get the chance to really cover very much about it. I was actually on spring break from college. I had to head up back home, and so I was busy. I was relaxing for a little bit. It was nice to have a little bit of a break, but now I'm back, and now that it is kind of past, now that it's in the rearview mirror, now that I'm sure that you guys have heard it from some of your other favorite experts, I think now the big question moving forward is, what does free agency do to the draft? Because, of course, a lot of these teams, especially at the top of the order, filled out some certain needs that they have. And a lot of new needs have really surfaced for a couple of these teams. There have been, certain pathways that these teams are taking in pertaining to gaining a new identity for themselves, especially for a lot of these teams that are going to be going in a different direction with a brand new head coach this year. And it changed. It definitely changed a lot. Definitely going to have a lot of the same talent of players towards the top of the order, but definitely changed a lot. And really only one or two moves can really change the direction of this draft. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop repeating myself. Let's get into it with the Tennessee Titans up at the top of the order with the number one overall pick. And when I say that this is probably the most important pick on the board, I really do mean that. Not just because it's the number one overall pick, that it's going to be the supposed best player in the draft from a position standpoint, but I also think that it really dictates the pathway for other teams in this draft. And it really is going to set the precedent of what is going to be valued in this draft. I mean, there are tons of different directions that the Titans could go with, especially when looking at some of the moves they made. Quarterback is obviously the biggest need of all. It is unclear as of right now if they're really going to have to move forward with Will Levis at starting quarterback. But also, they had some losses in free agency, most importantly at linebacker with losing Harold Landry. And that brings up a guy that has slowly but surely made his way up mock draft boards and has now made his case to be number one overall, and that is Abdul Carter, the absolute beast of an athlete at the edge for Penn State. Somebody who's very versatile on the end. And this decision has been really tough. I've kind of been going back and forth. In my opinion, with the needs that the Titans really have, with the top two needs that they have, and with the talent that is available, I really believe that these are the two guys that are realistically in play. I don't think that Travis Hunter is in play as of right now for the number one overall pick. I know that might sound insane with him being a two-way player, him being an awesome receiver, which the Titans do need a receiver, as you can see with Pro Football Focus's top needs. But I really think that Abdul Carter, with his freakish athleticism, with his versatility, and then Cam Ward just with his high ceiling, I really think that those are the really only two picks. And it's been interesting. There has been conflicting reports going back and forth. Titans general manager and the front office has talked about, not wanting to miss out on a generational type talent. And they believe that there is generational talent in this draft, but that's pertaining to Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. There obviously have been a lot of people saying, hey, the Titans made certain signings, as you'll see with, I believe they signed offensive tackle Dan Moore away from the San Francisco 49ers. Or ex-Steeler. I apologize. Dan Moore Jr. away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously looking to protect whoever is in that backfield accepting the ball. And a lot of the experts, if you take a look at CBS, which is a is a network that I really follow closely to. I mean, you see Ryan Wilson update today. He has Cam Ward. Cam Ward going to the Giants up here. Do want to mention that this draft is without trades. This is 100% just straight through. Mike Renner and Josh Edwards, they both have Cam Ward going number 1 overall. Cam Ward going up here. Garrett Podol, he has Abdul Carter. It's the first time I changed it. I changed it, and I can't believe that I'm changing it, but I'm going to go with Cam Ward with this number 1 overall pick. I think my reasoning behind it this time around is I feel like there's a little bit of a lull right now with head coach Brian Callahan. I feel like there's not a lot of NFL fans and Tennessee fans in particular, and Titans fans, let me know if you agree, that really trust him right now. And I think he really needs to gain the trust of the fans. I think that he really needs to have at least a little bit of success this year. And as great as Abdul Carter is on that edge, it's very, very difficult to win games when you do not have a quarterback. It is pretty much impossible to win games when you don't have solid talent under center. And while I don't feel like it is the greatest of situations, like I said, they did get a guy in Dan Moore Jr. that they're hoping is going to be a franchise tackle for them. They still have Tony Pollard in the backfield. I believe, do they still have Calvin Ridley? I believe they still have Calvin Ridley. Trying to bless up on my NFL knowledge here. Yes, they still have Calvin Ridley, so they still do have some options and some weapons for him there. And I think that Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 overall pick, which moves us to the Cleveland Browns. And once again, another team that can go in so many different directions with their draft pick. If you take a look at the free agency that they had, and we're going to go back and forth between this. Not a lot really going on with that. Really, the biggest of them all was just re-signing Myles Garrett to a big-time contract extension and pinning him down. And so when you look at that, you might look at Abdul Carter again and say, hey, do they want to pair these two guys up and just have every single quarterback within the AFC North, which there are a lot of talented ones, as we know, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson especially, who tends to get on the outside. Do we want to just make things a nightmare for those guys? But I actually think that they're going to go Travis Hunter, and I think that that is the best pick for them. I really just feel like that no matter who's at the quarterback position for the Browns, they really just need a big-time impact player. They need a big-time playmaker. And I feel like Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball, I mean, he can pair very, very well with Jerry Jeudy on the outside, whether it's him running short routes underneath and Jerry Jeudy going deep, whether it's Travis Hunter catching the deep balls and Jerry Jeudy using that freakish route running and great speed on the inside and catching passes there. I just feel like that they would be a solid dynamic. They would be two guys that can really do anything across the field from the receiving position. And then, of course, cornerback. I mean, when you look at their defensive depth, especially on the cornerback side, click on the Cleveland Browns right here. I mean, they've been wanting somebody across from Denzel Ward. And Martin Emerson Jr. is solid. Greg Newsome at the nickelback. But I just feel like Travis Hunter adding in a number 1 type cornerback, which in my opinion is the position that I feel like he plays best. Putting that aside, Denzel Ward, that is 2 strapped up corners that, by the way, are going to have to be facing off against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins twice a year. That are going to be now facing off against both Gabe Pickens and DK Metcalf twice a year. So quarterback is definitely going to be a big-time need for them. Secondary is going to be a big-time need to be able to face off against those high-powered offenses. Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman with their speed alone is great as well. And I think that Travis Hunter right there is going to be just a big-time playmaker and an impact that the Browns need. And with them potentially bringing in Russell Wilson, he's been having meetings with them. He's been having meetings with the number 3 overall pick, which we're about to get to with the New York Giants. I still think that the Browns will be suitable with a lower-level veteran-style quarterback to be able to go in there, as long as they do decide to move on from Deshaun Watson, which moves us to the team at hand, which is number 3 overall New York Giants. And again, another team that really depicts on what goes on with their meeting if they potentially sign Russell Wilson. We really don't have a concrete decision or really a side that Russell is really leaning on right now. But for the New York Giants, that obviously changes things. If they go out and get a Russell Wilson, they're obviously not looking to go out and get a young-time quarterback, although you might think that potentially at number 3 overall, they could sign Russell Wilson, get a young rookie quarterback, and have him learn behind him, somebody like a Shedeur Sanders who is having trouble with certain things like hanging on with the ball too long, dropping back too far into the backfield and whatnot, having trouble sometimes with his athleticism, evading the pocket and whatnot. Maybe Russell Wilson could be a good mentor there. But that really all depends on what goes on there. Now, as for the Giants, either way, I do have them going Shedeur Sanders here with this number 3 overall pick. And I know a lot of people are kind of taken aback from that. And I know a lot of people have Shedeur Sanders following down their draft board, especially with him not working out at the combine as Cam Ward did as well. But to be honest, I think that this really comes down to General Manager Joe Schoen and Brian Dable. I mean, excuse my language, but their asses are on the line this year. They 100% need to show some sign of life within New York. They need to show some sign of being able to go out and win games, especially the general manager with giving away Saquon Barkley to a division rival that has now won the Super Bowl and is topping the division, especially with the big time moves that the Commanders are making, especially with the amount of money that the Dallas Cowboys are going to continue to have, no matter the bad decisions that they make. They're still going to have big time money with a big market. They're going to be able to attract and bring players in. The Giants are kind of they really are the 4th place team within the division, not just talent wise, but really, front office wise with the things that they can do. And I think that Brian Dable and General Manager Joe Schoen, they drafted Malik Nabers for a reason. I think that they also agree, in spite with the Tennessee Titans, that look, you can't go out and you can't expect to win games if you do not have a quarterback by your side. We got a big-time weapon in Malik Nabers. Let's get somebody that is going to get him the ball. And in my opinion, Shedeur Sanders, if you're not signing a Russell Wilson, if you're not going out, if you missed out on guys like a Sam Darnold, I think that Shedeur Sanders really is your ideal pick in this draft because he is the guy that is going to be more pro-ready right away. He is the guy that has the best accuracy, especially short-wise, right off the bat over Cam Ward. He is the guy that is probably a lot smarter right off the bat than Cam Ward. Sure, is his ceiling as high? No, of course not. His arm is not nearly as big as Cam Ward's is. But I think when you are in a win now mode, when your butt is on the hot seat and you need to go out and win games, Shedeur Sanders is a guy that can go out and do it. And you have a franchise tackle in Andrew Thomas. You have Malik Nabers. Tyrone Tracy showed some signs of life. And even if you don't like Tyrone Tracy, this running back class is so deep that you can go out and get that weapon. I mean, this is a guy in Shedeur Sanders that had a lot of success with basically a one-trick pony offense that just relied on throwing the ball. And so if you're able to go out and get him a running back in the backfield, if you have a franchise offensive tackle on your line, who knows what the ceiling could be for the New York Giants. So I think overall, just because of how the general manager and the head coach are feeling, just to save their butts, they're going to go with a guy that could potentially win them more games right off the bat, and that is going to be Shedeur Sanders. And that moves to the New England Patriots, who are definitely not going to be in the market for Abdul Carter because they did a ton of work in free agency on this defense. And to be honest, I think that they had probably a top 2, top 3 free agency out of all the teams in the league. Building in the trenches with defensive tackle Milton Williams. They signed a veteran tackle with Martin Moses, but the defensive moves, Harold Landry III, Carlton Davis III, Robert Spillane, that linebacking core has been rebuilt in just a matter of days, and adding Carlton Davis III into that secondary is definitely going to be beneficial as well. And I think that with them signing Carlton Davis, they were hoping, at least in this mock draft, in a sense, that Travis Hunter was going to fall to them to potentially pair up those two, or maybe even signing Carlton Davis to give them some insurance if Travis Hunter can't play both ways and they need to go ahead and grab a receiver. Now, for the Patriots, a lot of people have them going offensive line with this pick. And really, I do have to agree, even with them going out and grabbing Morgan Moses on the offensive tackle side. Ryan Wilson has them going Kelvin Banks, who's kind of your prototypical big-time offensive lineman. Christian Prasso has Will Campbell. If we go ahead and look down, Josh Edwards, Will Campbell, Mike Renner has Travis Hunter falling to them. But there are a lot of people that are kind of Tedero McMillan is in this sense. And understand that the Patriots are really in desperate need for a receiver right now, and Drake May does need weapons. But to be honest, I'm once again going to go with the same saying that we've been saying for the first 3 picks of this, which is, you need to be able to protect the guy in the backfield. If you're not protecting Drake May in the backfield, he's not going to be able to get it to his weapons. And I think for that reason, we are going to go offensive line for this pick. A lot of people have Kelvin Banks. Some people are looking at Armand Membu, who went ahead and was a big riser from the NFL Combine. But I'm going to go with Will Campbell. And I think that this is kind of just the best pick for the Patriots overall, just because Will Campbell is looked at as probably the most versatile offensive lineman within this draft. And I really think that that's what the New England Patriots need at this moment, because I don't think that they really know what best five offensive linemen they can really put out there right away. And because of that, because of Will Campbell's, I know that there are a lot of concern about the length of Will Campbell's arm, or the lack thereof at least. I know that there are a lot of people that are worried about his size. I know that there were some people on CBS talking about they were worried that it doesn't seem like he can really get down into a three-point stance. But I really think that with his lack of size, with his lack of arm length, while that might not really suit him on the offensive tackle side, I think that really does suit him on the inside. And he does have that ability to move into on the inside. And that is going to be important for them, just trying to work out this offensive line and see where he best fits. And I think across the board with all five offensive line positions, he is the guy that can really transfer to any of those five. I think that Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons, even Armin Membu are really more of those stereotypical offensive tackles that can move either on the left or the right, but cannot move inside. And I think that Will Campbell has that ability to go to guard. And I think that is going to be suitable for them in finding the best protection for Drake Maye overall. So with that, the New England Patriots go ahead and they get their franchise offensive lineman. And now we move to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I'm going to continue to say this. So again, I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but are in another very interesting situation because they really, really tore down this offense, trading away Christian Kirk, letting Evan Ingram go for pretty much nothing. 2 years ago, letting Calvin Ridley go, both Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk going to division rivals. And now they are in big time need of revamping this offense, especially for Trevor Lawrence, especially with an offensive-minded coach in Liam Cohen, who we know is very, very creative. But they also do have areas where they need to build within the trenches, especially in that interior defensive line. I know that there has been talk about them wanting to go out and get somebody next to Eric Armstead, obviously. But despite what a lot of the experts say, I know a lot of people have them going Mason Graham out of Michigan. I mean, if your only big-time really offensive signing weapon-wise is Dwayne Brown from the Washington Commanders, I think that means that they're really saving what they can do going forward. And I think that pick is Tetairoa McMillan, just a big-time number one overall wide receiver that's going to be able to jump over, grab jump balls over smaller corners, be similar to what Jamar Chase really is for Cincinnati and go out and make big-time plays and connect. I think that Trevor Lawrence has been wanting a number one type receiver, somebody who's going to be set in stone and grow with him. And I think that Tetairoa McMillan, he can get yards after catch, but he could also be kind of an insurance card. And I think that's what Trevor Lawrence has been lacking. It's just a guy that you can kind of go ahead and throw the ball up to, especially when the play breaks down. Do I think that Tetairoa is going to be very suitable for a Liam Cohen offense and be able to go underneath and execute on a lot of these drag routes? Maybe not, but he's still a guy that is going to be able to go ahead and pick you up big time yardage. And I think that with them, not making the sexiest picks on the offensive line, but still making some solid pickups on the offensive line and trying to continue to protect Trevor Lawrence. I think that Tetairoa McMillan is definitely going to be the number one option for this team. That is going to be a big pick for them. And I know that with that, Las Vegas Raiders fans at number 6 are really frowning because they've had their eyes on Tetairoa McMillan, obviously trying to get a number one receiver after they gave away Devontae Adams. And now that Tetairoa McMillan is not available, it is very interesting to see kind of where this Las Vegas Raiders team really looks, especially with Pete Carroll now, especially now having a brand new quarterback with Geno Smith. They grabbed Jeremy Chin at linebacker, Landon Roberts at linebacker as well, so building up that linebacking core. So still Abdul Carter not really at play here, and I know a lot of people are going to be very surprised at him falling. Ooh, this was a pick that I really did not really think about. Now, let's go ahead and check out the Vegas Raiders lineup. We're in no rush here. Got Geno. I know that they signed Raheem Mostert recently in the backfield. They are building to have Christian Wilkins in that middle, but they still could use another big-time player. So I think we're going to go ahead and give the Las Vegas Raiders Mason Graham, just somebody that is going to be able to be put next to Christian Wilkins, who I think is more of the stereotypical inside defensive lineman athlete. And of course, Wilkins did struggle with some injury last year. They didn't have him for most of the year, which I know really did impact that defense. But now, with Mason Graham, Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby, that is a dangerous defensive line. And in a division like the AFC West, where once again you have big time quarterbacks, where you have the Denver Broncos, who have one of the top offensive lines in the league, you have the Los Angeles Chargers, who have Alt and Slater on the outside, you're definitely going to need a big time defensive line that is going to be able to go out and rush the quarterback. That is going to be important. And I think that Pete Carroll is going to be 100% okay with going out there and building the inside of his defensive line and creating that identity, kind of that dirty identity once again of the formerly Oakland Raiders, now Las Vegas Raiders. And now we move on to the New York Jets with new head coach Aaron Glenn and new starting quarterback in Justin Fields. Was very, very surprised about that, but definitely did like that move for New York. Needed to definitely get away from Aaron Rodgers and his drama. Definitely needed to get away from the clear decline that was happening with Aaron Rodgers in his career. So now with the Jets here, Justin Fields, Breece Hall, they reunite Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson. That's definitely going to be fun. They have Allen Lazard at the number 2. Definitely could see them going second or looking for that number 2 overall receiver. A lot of people potentially have them going defense. I think that they're pretty much good, especially when they were able to lock up Jamion Sherwood. They still have Jermaine Johnson, Quinton Williams in the middle. I think that they're pretty solid. I'm really looking at receiver and interior offensive line here. They did lose Morgan Moses on the outside. I'm also looking at tight end potentially with Tyler Warren with his athleticism. But I think that Lazard and Garrett Wilson are solid. Just trying to think here, guys. Apologize for me. Let's take a look at Armin Membu. Kind of read up about him a little bit. Want to go ahead and see his rise a little bit. We're all learning on the job here, aren't we? Oh, that is not what I expected. So I think that Lazard and Garrett Wilson together is going to be enough for Justin Fields, at least for the first year moving forward. And I think that they're going to really want to reinforce that offense line. I'm going to go with Armin Membu, somebody that I was just looking at his draft report because I haven't heard a lot about him. Definitely saw him at the combine, but definitely showed some solid athleticism at the combine. Somebody that can get out into space on runs, which is going to be important not only for Breece Hall, but of course for Justin Fields as well, whether they're running a read option or whether Fields wants to roll out on a play action. Just getting ahead and in the passing game and being able to make those big time blocks. But also seems like another very versatile and flexible tackle, somebody that could spin off, make really, really good contact on the outside. And I think that pairing him with Olu Fashanu, who also dealt with injury last year for the New York Jets, I think that is going to definitely be beneficial for Justin Fields and his further development. Getting a franchise tackle right there. Carolina Panthers at number 8. I'm not even going to think about this. It's going to be Abdul Carter at the edge. I understand that a lot of people are going to be really disappointed and mad that he fell to pick 8. But I definitely do think that once you get past, the top 1 or 2 picks, I think that these other teams would really only be taking Abdul Carter because he's the best player available. And for me personally, I like to draft more on fit. And I think that the Carolina Panthers are kind of the next team up that kind of fit Abdul Carter the most. It's kind of a very similar situation that Isaiah Simmons fell into with the Arizona Cardinals a couple of years ago, where, the top 4 or 5 teams kind of passed on him. Everyone was like, why is he falling? It's because nobody else really, really needed him. And when you look at the Carolina Panthers, with the struggle that they had defensively last year, with the struggle that they had tackling last year, really all they're relying on is a veteran Jadeveon Clowney, Josie Jewell in the middle. There's really not a lot on this defensive line, which Abdul Carter can go out and definitely play on the defensive line with his size, with his athletic ability. I just think that they're going to be able, that Dave Canales and company is going to be able to move him all over the place and is really going to make them a big time asset. Very similar to, I think, how Michael Parsons is valued within Dallas, whether he's playing inside, outside linebacker, weak side linebacker, on the inside on the defensive line, on the outside on the defensive line. I definitely think that that's a very similar role that Abdul Carter is going to have in Carolina, which moves us to another very interesting pick with the number 9 overall New Orleans Saints. There's a lot of people that have Shedeur Sanders potentially going to the New Orleans Saints. And I think that the Saints, if quarterback is a priority early, is a team that you could potentially look at as making a big time reach on one of these, kind of middleman quarterbacks, like a Jackson Dart who's been rising up boards, like a Jalen Milroe who has probably the highest ceiling out of all the quarterbacks, but is definitely the lowest floor because of how raw he is. Or maybe even a Will Howard or a Riley Leonard, who people kind of already know where they're at. But if it's not one of those guys, you have the potential of running back. I know that Pro Football Focus has that as a need. I know that Alvin Kamara has been dealing with injury. He's obviously been aging. You have Ashton Jeanty to slot into that spot potentially. Defensive back potentially. You have defensive line as well. Let's take a look at who CBS has listed for the New Orleans Saints. They have them going offensive tackle, quarterback. We go ahead and look up here. Jahdae Brown, C corner, offensive tackle. I think it's really the direction that Kellen Moore really wants to go into. Does he want to fully buy into Derek Carr for one more year and go out and get him some protection? Does he want to fully buy into Derek Carr for one more year and go out and get him another big-time weapon? Because it definitely would not hurt. But you have Olave, you have Shaheed, Jawan Johnson, has not moved, which I was actually pretty surprised about. You could go into the secondary and add on with the pickup of Justin Reed, get somebody across from Kool-Aid McKinstry. Really do come up with these mock drafts on the spot, guys. I think that the Saints are definitely going to be somebody that buys into the Arch Manning sweepstakes next year. I'm going to go with Arch Manning's teammate and Kelvin Banks. I think that Kelvin Moore is going to see the weapons that he has with Kamara, with Olave, with Shaheed, with Johnson. While all those guys have had different dealings with injury, I think that that is still a really high-powered and talented offense. And I think that he is going to want to give Derek Carr at least one more chance to potentially make a run at it. I mean, it's his first year. He really has nothing to lose. With the number 9 overall pick, you really don't want to go out and make a big-time reach. You don't really want to get a position that you already have a big-time veteran player at. I understand the prospect of a Will Johnson or a Jahdae Barron at cornerback to play across with Kool-Aid McKinstry, but I just think that you need to give Derek Carr one more year. And I know that we say this every single time, and Derek Carr doesn't really surprise us with anything, but hopefully Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara can have a full healthy season, and we could see potentially a high-powered New Orleans Saints offense at its best with a franchise tackle in Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. Chicago Bears, another one that I'm not even going to doubt for a second. Now, if Will Campbell was available on this board, I would potentially consider him because, once again, because of his versatility moving inside the guard, that could be a potential pick for them. And also, they're really 4 out of 5 right now on the offensive line, which is great. They did make some big-time moves. Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman. They have Darnell Wright already. Who was their other pick? Why am I blanking on who else they got? Drew Dahlman. Who was the other guy? Why can't I find the Chicago Bears? There they are. Joe Thuney. They traded for Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs. But all of those guys have obviously had injury histories as well, right? Dahlman, Jackson. I believe Thuney's been pretty clean, but Jackson, Dahlman, and Darnell Wright have all dealt with injuries. So definitely could get some insurance with Will Campbell. Obviously, Josh Simmons is still on the board at tackle, but I think that that's a little bit of a reach at this moment. But I think with them building there on the offensive line, they're really giving themselves some big-time flexibility. I know that a lot of Chicago Bears fans are wanting Ashton Jeanty. I know that DeAndre Swift has been a little bit underwhelming, although last year he still almost had 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, so not terrible. So solid season. They did build the trenches on the inside with Grady Jarrett. You could potentially look to get somebody across from Jalen Johnson, although I know that who was it? Jaquan Brisker was out for most of the year, which was a big-time issue for that secondary. But do you want some potential security there? Mock drafts had them going Campbell. Tyler Warren, really very interesting. I could see that with Komet's lack of production last year. This one has Ashton Jeanty. This one has Banks. So you can see kind of how all over the place they are. This one has them going offensive tackle. I could see it for sure. I think that Jeanty is definitely the want, not the need for the Bears. I know that Pro Football Focus has running back as a need, but I think that DeAndre Swift is a suitable player, and I think that you could go in different directions. There's also safety they listed. Although Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker, I feel fine with that. Decisions, guys. I'm gonna give them Jahdae Barron. And I'm going to go with the Longhorns back to back. And again, that's another change for me. Normally, I do go Genty when it comes to these drafts, but I just don't feel like Swift is really needed to be replaced right now. I think that you would want to replace them if you could get a big time talent like Ashton Genty. That would definitely be great, and that would be a big time potential high powered offense for Ben Johnson and company. But I just don't feel like that's really the top need with a guy that had almost 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think that you can continue to build that secondary, give yourself more insurance, give yourself somebody when Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker gets hurt, get somebody across from Jalen Hudson. I think that Jahdae Barron can really be that at the cornerback spot. Now, the San Francisco 49ers at number 11 definitely need some big-time O-line help, especially with the loss of Aaron Banks on the inside. I believe they also lost an offensive tackle in free agency as well. The problem for the 49ers is that there isn't really very many people of value right now. You obviously have Josh Simmons at number 20 on the inside. Your potential best value interior offensive lineman is Tyler Booker, but definitely some guys that you could go ahead and get in the second round. Defensive line could definitely be a need, but I'm going to go ahead and give the San Francisco 49ers their Charvarius Ward replacement, and that is Will Johnson, somebody who a couple of weeks ago was the number 1 overall corner in this draft, or was at least competing with Travis Hunter for the number 1 overall cornerback in this draft. I know is a guy that is very, very great, very, very aggressive on the defensive side, but also shows intelligence, being able to push his man to the inside when it comes to zone coverage, being able to just stick onto his man with glue, especially on the outside, and be very aggressive with jump balls on the outside within man coverage. And I think that Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, those are going to be big time losses for them in that secondary, and they were able to regain that with come on, D. They were able to regain that with but overall, just think that Will Johnson is going to be the best fit to begin to rebuild what was once a really, really solid defense. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, they did go out and pick up Javonte Williams within free agency from my Denver Broncos. Really, really sad to see Javonte go, but I think that it was necessary. But running back is still a pretty big need for them. Especially, it's not a position that you really have to pay. I know that they signed Javonte Williams, but it was a 1 year, I believe, and it was pretty low cash. You could also potentially go out and try to look for a new weapon for Dak at the wide receiver. You could start to really rebuild this defense. Let's go ahead and take a look at Dallas's roster here. Have CeeDee Lamb on the outside. A second receiver could definitely be needed. Another corner could be needed. Ron Bland, Trayvon Diggs. The interior. This team is just not very great right now, to be honest. Offensive line, I mean, especially with the loss of Zach Martin retiring. Hated to see him go. CBS Sports has Armand Bembou, Tyler Booker, which I was really thinking about. Is Genty really falling? Is Genty really going to fall? I think that he is. I'm going to go on the interior, and I'm going to go ahead and grab Tyler Booker. I know a lot of people might take a look at it as a reach, but I think that he's really the best value interior offensive lineman. And I just think that they cannot leave Dak out to dry at this moment, and that the CD connection, they're going to have to really rely on that. And while Javonte Williams isn't an amazing option at running back, he is still suitable. He has solid balance. Is not somebody that's going to be able to go out and fight for extra yards after breaking 1 or 2 tackles, but is somebody that definitely could service you with getting 500, 600 yards. Still really confused of why they went out and they let go of Rico Dowdle. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins, very similar. You can see that there is a solid trend with all these players, which is a need at offensive line. I'm going to go ahead and give them Josh Simmons on the outside. Again, very similar. I think that the Dolphins are just very worried as of right now with Tua's injury history. I think that Austin Jackson has not been what they thought that he was going to be since they drafted him, and he really has not developed that well. Teron Armstead has somehow lasted this long, and I think that they just can't waste a lot of time. They went out and they picked up Nick Westbrook-Ikine, who was a really, really solid red zone guy for the Tennessee Titans a year ago. And so pairing him with the speed that is Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, they obviously still have Devon Achane in that offense. Johnny Smith is suitable. And I know the defense, there could potentially be some needs, but they still have Jordan Brooks, Bradley Chubb, which is some solid athleticism out there. Jalen Phillips. I mean, if all these guys can just continue to come back from the monstrous amount of injuries that they've had in years past, they still have Chop Robinson, who it was only his first year. I understand they didn't have a lot of production. 6 sacks, not too bad for him. 16 tackles. Actually, a little bit more than I really thought that he was going to do when he was first picked. But I think that defense, as far as the linebacker position, is really solved as of right now, as long as those guys can come back from injury. I think that secondary could be a need, but I think that outside of Malachi Starks right now, there's just not really a guy outside of Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron that's really needed. And so I think that tackle, get a replacement for Austin Jackson, get that guy out there, see what Simmons has to offer, and protect your quarterback at all cost. Indianapolis Colts, this has kind of been the first team that I've really found a place for Tyler Warren. I think this is really the glaring issue for Indianapolis when it comes to their offensive weapons. I understand that they weren't as productive as they wanted to be last year, and I think that also just came down to Anthony Richardson just not being as great as he was last year. But you still have solid pieces. Michael Pittman Jr. still in place. Jonathan Taylor at running back. Alec Pierce was actually really, really solid for them, especially as a deep threat down the field. Josh Downs, I still love in the slot. Again, I think that there could potentially be some need for offensive line, but all of those guys are off the board at this moment. So really, when you look at this offense, really the only big glaring move is Drew Ogletree at tight end. And so I think that that's going to be really a big-time crossover there. Also, look out for Malachi Starks here for the Indianapolis Colts at 14 as well. I think that guys such as Nick Cross, Cameron Bynum, what did they let go? They did not have the other safety. I forgot his name. They went ahead and let him go. But both of those guys have also dealt with injury, but they picked up Charvarius Ward in free agency. They were able to keep Zaire Franklin in the middle. So I think that Tyler Warren, they need to try and just make this situation the best they can for Anthony Richardson or for Daniel Jones, for that matter, who they picked up at backup quarterback. They need to make this situation as best as they can so they can really, truly evaluate this quarterbacks, especially Anthony Richardson, and try to see if this truly is the guy that they believe can develop into a true starting quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons at 15, honestly, if they do not go defense, I don't know what they're doing, especially with Raheem Morris being a defensive side coach and the defense still really struggling. Excuse me. I'm going to go Jahad Campbell for them at linebacker. I know that CBS was talking about him as a really good rangy linebacker in terms of his ability to drop back into coverage and also be a secure tackler. And I think that's really just what they need. It's what they've struggled with for the past couple of years. They were able to grab a veteran presence with Leonard Floyd, of course. Divine Diablo came in a little bit from the season from being one of their top tacklers, of course, but I think that they just need to keep getting on that. There is also potential for them building the trenches as well, maybe getting somebody like an edge and James Pierce, go on the inside with Kenneth Grant from Michigan. I definitely think that could be a suitable position, but I think that Jahad Campbell, with his ability to be rangy, with that zone coverage at the linebacker position, being able to guard tight ends in coverage, with his athleticism, especially on the edge, being able to cut off outside zone runs, I think that's really going to be important for Atlanta's success going forward in building the proper defense. The Arizona Cardinals, once again, another team that could potentially go into the interior with offensive line. They also need D-line help, it says here. They also need cornerback help. Let's go ahead and check out this D-line for the Arizona Cardinals. See what we're looking with. They still have Josh Sweat, Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle. They could also potentially go linebacker. I know that they picked up Baron Browning last year in a trade with the Broncos, with my Broncos. CBS has them going Mike Green from Marshall, another guy that has really rise up the ranks. Face the limit from the combine. Excuse me. Just saw it in space. Just doesn't seem like a big time athlete, or maybe I could be wrong. Who else do they have? Defensive line with Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant. What do they say with Kenneth Grant fitting into that? Because I know that Kenneth Grant is really the big-time nose tackle in this. Two-gap run stopper. I mean, Mike Green is tempting, but I'm going to go with the guy that I know more in Kenneth Grant on the inside. Somebody that, like I just said, is your prototypical nose tackle. I mean, it's 6'3", 339 pounds. Take a look at Pro Football Focus. Ideal size for the nose tackle position. Rare quickness, has a lot of strength to be able to push forward the center position. Solid hand speed that can move to the lower body quickness. I think that that's going to be suitable for the Arizona Cardinals at 16. So I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant. Number 17, the Cincinnati Bengals, who also could use some offensive line help. Obviously, just yesterday signed both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, two big-time massive deals within that outside. Really not very valuable interior offensive lineman at this moment. You also have the linebacker position. Could this be where Mike Green goes? Ashton Jeanty, could they potentially fill out and replace Chase Brown? Malachi Starks is still there. Who do the Cincinnati Bengals have at safety? I know it's Jordan Battle, Geno Smith. Secondary is a little bit questionable. Jermaine Pratt still in the middle there. But the offensive line is such a big need, but there's really no need for them to go out there. I'm looking at Mike Green, really. Michael Williams they have here. Malachi Starks. I really do like Malachi Starks, though, with his athleticism, with his range. How do they have him fitting into Cincinnati here? Versatile, high-caliber safety with size of big cornerback. And assuming they find a better way to keep Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals can take one of the best players available. He is one of the better players available. And Pro Football Focus really needs to work on these needs a little bit. I don't think that that linebacker and defensive line are really the biggest needs. I'm going to go Malachi Starks, not only for the value that he brings, but I also think that he has a lot of range and versatility, having that size of a number one overall corner, being able to match up in man situations. I think that he's going to be very versatile and be able to rotate all around the Cincinnati Bengals secondary. And I think that that's a really big time need for them. Cam Taylor, Britt, Dax Hill, Jalen Davis, Geno Stone is solid at safety, but while not a big time hitter, is definitely the best safety by far as far as talent, and especially in coverage. I mean, it doesn't even come close. The next one would probably say is it's close between these two. Probably say Nick Emmanwori, but he's not projected to go until like the second or third round. So I'm going to go Malachi Starks there for the Cincinnati Bengals. Once again, Seattle Seahawks could potentially need an offensive lineman. Let's go ahead and take a look. Tyler Booker's here. Matthew Golden's been rising throughout the ranks, but I think that I'm going to go linebacker with them here. Tedero McMillan at 18. Wow, that's a stretch there. Kenneth Grant, Colston Loveland. I still like Noah Fant for them. I'm going to go with Mike Green at edge. I think that Mike McDonald is really going to want to continue to solidify what his identity really talks to, and that is the defensive side. Picking up Cooper Kupp, I don't think that they're really in need right now of a true wide receiver with JSN, Kupp, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Noah Fant, I think, is fine there, so I think that offensively they're fine. Offensive line isn't great, but again, the value just isn't solid right now. They have some solid pieces on defensive line with Leonard Williams picking up DeMarcus Lawrence. But really on the outside, really all they have is really on the interior with Ernest Jones. And I think that Mike Green, with his power ability on that outside, is definitely going to be a good fit there in Seattle. Speaking of edge, another team that could really use an edge with Tampa Bay. Go ahead and James Pierce, 243. I know that he is a insane athlete with his very, very quick speed, especially off the edge. Can get handled one-on-one against tackles and tight ends. Does have some good speed to power pop. Those pass rush grade and win percentage are both already very high. Could have a true pass rush plan more consistently launch off his front foot. But he has really solid power. Very, very twitchy. I'm going to give them James Pierce Jr. as well. Again, just a really, really great athlete. Denver Broncos, 20. You might say that this was planned, but Ashton Jeanty's here, still here. He's falling to 20. I know a lot of mock drafts have him falling. He falls down to 20. Do I take him? I think for Denver, Sean Payton, I just really don't feel like Payton really values running backs really well in his offense, even though they really need running back, especially with Javonte Williams being gone now. But I just feel like Payton doesn't really enjoy running the ball a lot. What time are we doing? 47 minutes. We're not doing too bad. And I feel like, Payton has talked about potentially having a joker, and I think that Evan Ingram can definitely be that joker for Denver. But I also think that Luther Burden, with his speed ability, with his ability to be a deep threat. You could move Marvin Mims onto the inside. You could bring in Devon Bailey as a sub on the outside, which would be solid. I really hate to do it. I don't like Genty falling this far, and I maybe should have drafted him with somebody early because once again, I'm changing my mind. I'm changing it on the moment. But I'm going to go with Luther Burden because I think that Sean is going to prioritize the passing game more. And I think that this running back class is so deep. You have guys like Amarion Hampton. You have guys like Cam Judkins or Keenshawn Judkins, excuse me. You have Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. You have Cam Scatterbo, who really hasn't been talked about a lot. You have Devin Neal from Kansas. Like, I think that there is a lot more depth in this running back class. I think when it comes to this wide receiver class, I think really after Burden, you have Egbuka. Golden has risen, but really just purely off his athleticism. I think it's Iomanor. I think it's those three, and really then there's a big time fall off until really I think the next guy that Denver will really be interested in. Really, I think it's just because of Bo Nix is Tez Johnson, who could potentially go in the third or fourth round. And I know that they've still wanted to give a look at guys like Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, but I really think that receiver is going to be a big time need for them this year. And I think that they think that the value at running back is going to be there in the second and third round. They're going to be able to get a valuable guy there. I hate to do it. I hate that Genty falls this far, but I'm going to go ahead and put Genty there with Luther Burden going at 20. Now, speaking of Genty, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have Jaylen Warren. Does this mean that they pick their guy? This is kind of going to be the first year if they don't pick a running back that Warren is kind of off on his own. If you look at his rushing wise, 2023, he had a really solid year. But other than that, it's really just he's looked like a running back that has split carries with someone. There's also the potential for quarterback if they don't bring back Russell Wilson. I know that they're also talking to Aaron Rodgers as well. They brought Darius Slay in the secondary to pair with Joey Porter Jr. and Minka Fitzpatrick and Deshaun Elliott. I honestly think that the Steelers are very, very solid all around. I think that this is a want pick for them, and I think that Genty could go here. And I think that if Genty does not go within the top 12, like if the cutoff is Dallas, I think that it is almost guaranteed that it will either be Denver or Pittsburgh that he goes to. I don't think that he will fall any further than Pittsburgh. It's really going to be about how much he is valued as a talent in this draft. But I think that Jaylen Warren's a solid option at running back. Do not get me wrong. But I think that Genty is just going to offer them a lot more. And in a year that you do not know who your quarterback is realistically going to be, despite the weapons that they have put around the quarterback position, I really think that they could potentially have to rely on the run game a lot more, even if they do get Aaron Rodgers, which could be a solid situation with some of the guys that they have. But I think that with Rodgers' lack of mobility, with the lack of chemistry that he's going to have right off the bat, I think that the running game is something that they're going to have to lean on a lot more. And I think that Genty is somebody that, with that poor offensive line, with the lack of pass game in the early going, at least of the season, is somebody that could handle that load with his balance, with his ability to break off of 2 or 3 tackles. Again, if Chicago or Dallas don't go for it, I would not expect him to fall past Denver or Pittsburgh. I think that those are definitely the final 2 teams that he would go through. Then you have the LA Chargers. You definitely have them going receiver here. The question is that Egbuka, Golden, or Loveland? Do they go receiver or do they go tight end? And if I'm Harbaugh, again, I'm thinking about the depth in this draft. And if Tyler Warren's not available, which he could potentially fall because of some of the injury issues that he's had, but if Warren's not available, I look at this tight end class and I go, okay, it is Loveland or bust. Whereas with wide receiver, you have, like I mentioned, you have Egbuka, you have Golden with his athleticism, you have Iomanor sliding down. I know a lot of people are big on Jack Beck after his combine performance. You look down, you have Tez Johnson, you have Isaiah Bond, who didn't even perform well at the combine, but I still think could be a potentially solid receiver. I think that you look at the depth in this class and you say there is more depth at the receiver position and we have to shore up the tight end. We have to continue to make Justin Herbert as comfortable as we can, even though he did not look good at all in that playoff game against the Houston Texans. Will Dissly's just not doing it. And I think with the fact that they brought Mike Williams back, I think that that shows a sign of desperation and the fact that they want to go all in and grab a tight end and then potentially work on receiver later. So I'm going to go with that with Loveland. Really solid, could potentially be a solid blocking tight end as well for the running game, which could help them with them bringing in Najee Harris. Is not nearly the athlete that Tyler Warren is, but it's just a really safe type of tight end that could pick up the first 3 to 5 yards in a short passing game. The Green Bay Packers, they have them listed with the top needed receiver here. I feel like Matt LaFleur has been comfortable with having Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed. And I think that that's a solid 3 wide receiver combo. But is it a combination that is going to be able to take you far in the playoffs? They also have edge, which outside of Clark, Gary, Edgerrin Cooper, but he's on the inside. Definitely could see that. Where does CBS have them going? They have Derek Harmon there. I passed by it. I apologize. Harmon. It's the same draft. They have Burden. I definitely could see them going Egbuka. I just feel like there's a lot of fatigue with Egbuka because a lot of people have been covering him for so long. Ryan Wilson has Mikael Williams. I kind of like that pick, to be honest, because he's another just really great athlete out of Georgia. He doesn't have to build a lot on his frame. Solid power player. Do kind of feel like that's a Green Bay pick. Just kind of go with the athlete and the pass rusher. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with Mikael Williams, big time power rusher on the edge. I think that he could really help Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark in the middle, especially, and add to that linebacking core. Although Quay Walker he was solid 1 year, wasn't he? 2.5 sacks. I guess he's just a big time tackler, but definitely somebody that could get after the quarterback with Mikael Williams. 24 with the Minnesota Vikings. This is gonna be a long episode, guys. I really, really apologize about this. And I apologize if my knowledge isn't up to date at the back end of this draft. Definitely need to do a little bit more research. But with the Minnesota Vikings, interior defensive line is definitely a need. Is quarterback a potential need? Because J.J. McCarthy. Receiver we know is not a need. Tight end's not a need. Defense, they picked up Jonathan Allen. I know that. They have Harrison Smith, who they re-signed. They have Byron Murphy. There's really not another cornerback that could potentially be valuable. Malachi Starks is not on our draft board anymore. Neither is Will Johnson, who they have them taking. They have both Johnson and Malachi Starks falling back. Nick Amenawari, big-time reach. Interesting. The thing with I like the Jeremy Chin comparison that they have for Amenawari here, just because I feel like he is that prototypical like linebacker type safety, and he's so physically like he's a hybrid. He's a Jeremy Chin, he's a Kyle Hamilton. He's more of that box type safety that you could play in dime. It is reach. It is reach, but I do kind of like going with the experts more with these last 8 picks, especially because I don't know a lot more about these last few players. I'm going to go with the Amenawari. A lot of versatility there with him. Stereotypical linebacker, I think that you would think. Solid in coverage with the safety. A lot of power behind him as well. Elite athleticism, which is really what a lot of these guys have in this draft. Just a lot of elite size and athleticism. Texans, I'm not even going to think about this. I'm going to go with the because Matthew Golden does hold a lot of speed, and I'm wondering if that would be better next to Nico Collins, because Tank Dell, we're not sure that how he's going to be coming off the ACL tear. I'm going to go with Golden. I think that Ibuka is going to fall a lot because, like I said, I think that there's a lot of fatigue around him right now. I think that we've been covering him for so long. I think that Egbuka has really solid hands and he's very a secure wide receiver, but I think that Golden is just an X factor. And I think that the Texans, that's really what they need right now is somebody that is just going to stand out because they lost Tank Dell. And they're going to need somebody that is really going to have to bring a pop to this passing game, unless the entire offense is really going to potentially suffer, because I'm not sure if Joe Mixon is going to have a very successful time right now with the offensive line that they're putting him behind. Moving on to 26 with the LA Rams. Another flexible team here. A team that could definitely benefit from having one of those top tight ends being on the board, as they do have Tyler Higbee there. Did sign Devontae Adams there, running game with Kyren Williams in the backfield. The defense, though, could use some work. Let's not get behind that. Get away from that. Let's go ahead and look at CBS, who they have. They have Barron. They have Hardman. I do like Hardman out of Oregon. Definitely do think that he could serve on that defensive line. Who else do we have? Barron, Egbuka. Just don't think that there's really a need right now for a receiver. Carlin Schwartz. I think this defensive line is just very barren. I'm going to go ahead and give Derek Harmon right here. Take a look at him. Again, elite size, 6'5", 310. Definitely somebody that can move inside to potentially be a nose tackle. Very, very long arms, solid hand speed. Is really, really great as just a bull rushing pass forward guy that can just power through you. And so I think that that's going to be a solid pick for them. Again, just continuing to get some solid pass rush in there, build that defensive line, build through the trenches, excuse me. Now the Baltimore Ravens at 27. Another interesting team that I think could go offensive line, especially to get Derrick Henry some help. Also a team that could potentially go linebacker here. Devon Ezu. I mean, we do have Arianti Ursary on the board, which could be interesting. But he's kind of fallen off a bit. Donovan Ezeruko. Shamar Stewart. Can't believe I kind of forgot about Shamar Stewart. 79.5. Again, great size for a pass rusher. That's really what a lot of these guys have. Good length. Let's go ahead and take a look at this Ravens roster. I know this defensive line has needed a little bit of work. Secondary could also use some work, but there's just nobody on the board right now. Dafi Owe was solid this year. But again, I'm just going to build up. I think I'm going to build up with that, just that depth there with Shamar Stewart. 28 with the Lions. I don't know why wide receivers are needed. And this is one of the reasons why I think Pro Football Focus needs to review this, is because I do not think that wide receiver is definitely a need here. I'm going to go with another edge here just to continuing to shore up, especially when you don't have the same defensive coordinator and Aaron Glenn. I feel like that changes things from an aggression standpoint. So I'm going to go with the edge out of Boston College. I think that he will definitely pair well, especially with somebody in Aiden Hutchinson who's coming off of a broken leg, and we're not sure how he's going to come out. I think that Donovan definitely does have some versatility with his size, being smaller on that outside edge, to go out and be versatile and be an athletic weak side linebacker that can also go into coverage. I'm almost stumbling over my words there. I also definitely do think that you can go Jalen Walker, and I've kind of neglected him a little bit within this draft, but I definitely think that is an area. Commanders, I think that they go receiver. I know that they added Debo. I'm not sure how productive he's really going to be, especially in a Cliff Kingsbury offense. I think that Emeka Egbuka, with his route running abilities, with his solid hands, I think that he's just much more of a sure thing. I think that Terry McLaurin can be versatile and move inside with his speed to slot receiver. I think that Deebo Samuel could serve in the backfield at the running back position, and you could have Egbuka and McLaurin on the outside. I think that this just continues to give Jaden Daniels the best opportunities to succeed. I think that this gives Jaden Daniels the opportunity to go out and just have a versatile offense around him, where there are, you have Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Deebo Samuel subbing in, Noah Brown subbing in, whether it's at tight end or outside receiver. You have Terry McLaurin moving into the slot. You just have options all around him. That's always great to have, especially with a rookie or second-year quarterback in his case. Buffalo Bills here at 30. 30. It is 30 for the Buffalo Bills. Definitely want to go defense here. They have them going secondary. I was kind of looking at Jalen Johnson in this bar. Jalen Walker, I apologize. Linebacker position. Did sign Bosa at the end. Milano. But man, how long is this guy really going to keep playing? He's at 30. He has some tread on his tires. Not really anything really outside of that. I mean, secondary again is a need, but it's just not. There's not a lot going on there. Corner Trey Amos, maybe Maxwell Harrison. Safety Xavier Watts, maybe. I'm going to go with Jalen Walker. I know there's a lot of people that are worried about his size and how that translates to the NFL, but I think that he's still a really solid run stopper. He's somebody that does really great at getting inside into that gap, especially on the outside. I think that once again, he's versatile. He can play on the edge, but he also, with his lack of size, he can play inside in the middle. And with his coverage abilities, could play on the inside and guard tight ends in the middle. And I think that once again, the Bills, when you're facing against teams like Baltimore, when you're facing against teams like Kansas City, when you're facing against teams like Detroit and Philadelphia, if they are ever able to make it to that last dance in the Super Bowl, I think that you just need big-time playmakers, and I think that Jalen Walker is one of those. The Kansas City Chiefs definitely do need a reality check when it comes to the offensive line, especially giving away Joe Thuney. I haven't even looked. Is Trey Smith even gone anywhere? I feel like he was such a big time name, and I haven't even really heard anything. He is still with the Kansas City Chiefs. Did he sign? They franchise tagged him. Okay, so I must have lost track about that. I was going to say I haven't really heard anything about him. Offensive line is just still not. There's still not a lot of value here. And I almost feel like the Chiefs would be better going out and just getting a defensive playmaker potentially. Could also go offense because we don't know what's happening with Xavier Worthy as of this moment. They have Pacheco, so Hampton is not an option right here. I'm just going to go best available player right here and go with Darius Alexander. Continue to build that D-line. Give Steve Spagnuolo more options within the pass rush. Play alongside Chris Jones. Karlaftis was good in certain positions, but I think that Mike Dana could definitely be replaced. They were able to keep Nick Bolton in the middle, but I think at this point, especially when you're at 31 and both of them have them going Darius Alexander, you kind of just need to go with the best value, or you kind of need to trade back. Philadelphia Eagles, again, don't know why wide receivers a need. I kind of find that kind of stupid. Running back, definitely not a need. Could go offensive line on the inside. Could go corner. Could what I mean by corners, like a hybrid corner safety, kind of where Cooper DeJean is really playing. Where do they have DeJean listed as a nickelback, really? Reed Blankenship, a safety could be a priority. I'm going to go with kind of a wild one to end this off. I'm going to go with Xavier Watts at safety and kind of just play that out. So there we go. That is the final draft. Took a while. I apologize for such a long episode. I hope you guys enjoy. But just taking a look at this, Cam Ward going number 1, the Buffs going back-to-back at 2 and 3. You have Will Campbell at your 4. I think that's going to be a very solid, versatile pick for New England, kind of move him around. Tyrell McMillan, I think that you just have to give Trevor Lawrence some type of means to try and succeed. Mason Graham in the middle, definitely think that he's going to be able to build the trenches with Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby, and that's going to be one scary pass rush. Our man Bamboo got to once again give Justin Fields the best opportunity to go out and succeed and gain a franchise tackle across from Olu Fashanu, who hopefully can come back with his athleticism, with his size, with his rawness, can really build on that. Abdul Carter, sad to see him fall to number 8, but I just don't feel like there's really a big-time need for him outside of, potentially Tennessee or Cleveland. The Longhorns going back-to-back. I think with the Bears, again, you could consider Ashton Jeanty, but I just don't think that that's a big-time need for them right now. I think that that's more of a want, more of a sexy pick. And with the Saints, I really think that you just have an explosive offense at your hands that just has not been able to stay healthy. And I think that if you can keep those guys healthy, if you can keep Derek Carr healthy, and you can protect him, I think that that offense could potentially be fireworks and building behind the running game with Alvin Kamara. Will Johnson at 11. I think that you just need to find a replacement in the secondary for Halafunga and Charvarius Ward. I don't think that you can leave those guys out to dry. Cowboys at 12. I mean, I admit Tyler Booker is a little bit of a reach, but with Zach Martin leaving, I really don't think that leaves you any choice. And with Javonte Williams, I really just signed to Dallas. I really just think that they're trying to cover their butts here. I know that Genty could be potentially there too, but I just don't think that it would be smart with not giving him a solid offensive line to run behind. Josh Simmons, again, I think that you just need to protect Tua at all costs. Tyler Warren, this is really kind of the first spot that I really see him being successful. I do also think that he could realistically fall back to, not Denver anymore. So maybe, a Pittsburgh, an LA, maybe even an LA Rams back at 26. Him and Loveland could definitely fall. But I think that the Colts, again, they really need to see where Anthony Richardson is at and where he can progress. And I think that Warren gives them the best ability with that, with the weapons that he will have. Jahad Campbell, I would be super surprised if Atlanta doesn't go defense. They need it. They need more secure tacklers. They need more coverage, especially in the middle. And I think that Campbell offers that range. Kenneth Grant within the middle, I think that's really kind of the only sort of weakness on the Cardinals defense right now is on that defensive line. Malachi Starks, I think that this is a really great value pick for Cincinnati, and another guy that I could really see potentially falling back, maybe even into these 30 range, even to the mid 20s, potentially to like Minnesota Vikings or whatnot. They would definitely enjoy him, Green Bay Packers and whatnot. But I think at 17, since he really needs to start building this secondary, especially with so many of the weapons that you have out, and having a guy that with his size at least and with his coverage abilities can move to corner or safety, I think that that's going to be beneficial. Seahawks, I mean, they really didn't give me any real choice with Mike Green. I don't think that you really need to go anywhere offensively. I didn't like the depth at offensive line at this point in the draft, so you just get kind of this power, athletic type guy. James Pierce again, and another dude with really elite size, and that's really what Tampa Bay needs. Denver, you could go Genty, you could go Burden. I go Burden in some drafts. I have gone Genty, but I really think that wide receiver is more of a priority to Sean Payton at this moment. 21, I think that the Steelers are just, even though that they have solid passing weapons, I don't know if they trust the passing game right now with the men that could potentially be behind it, leading the ship. And so because of that, I think that you can lean on the run game. You can go out, you can get a big-time talent like Genty, and he can lead that. Chargers, again, I just think that tight end is more of a preference to Harbaugh than wide receiver is at this moment. I think that the Mike Williams signing really shows that, and I think that Loveland can really plug in. Edge with Mykel Williams. Again, I think that Green Bay, this is kind of just their stereotypical pick, getting a big-time athlete off the edge, rushing. Nick Emmanwori, definitely a little bit of a reach, but definitely something that I feel like the Vikings really need. Kind of just this hybrid man that can kind of just go around and play everywhere. Matthew Golden, I think that you could definitely go Egbuka here, but I think that he is a big-time X-factor player with his speed, and I think that they kind of need that type of player with Tank Dell not really knowing where he sits. Harmon at 26. You have the Ravens game pass rush at 27 and 28, so 3 straight pass rushes right there. You have the Washington Commanders at 29. I just think that it gives you the most versatility on offense, being able to sub guys in and out, going in with different packages with Cliff Kingsbury offense. Jalen Walker, I think, is just a big-time playmaker for the Bills. And then 31 and 32, honestly, with those, for me, they're either big-time reaches or you just get the best player available with those picks because the value is kind of not great. So that's my mock draft, guys. Overall, let me know what you guys think about this mock draft post free agency. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Who would you guys take in certain spots? Who do you guys want for your teams? Nonetheless, let me know all of that down in the comment section. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, leave a comment and like down below, and feel free to share with your friends. And if you have not already, come on, guys, what are we doing? Please feel free to follow us on all social medias. You guys lost me for a second. I apologize. All of the ads are going to be down below. And like always, there's going to be a bar popping up right here. And without further ado, guys, that is all from me that I have for you today. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.